Roy Jones Jr. stepped into the ring as the most feared fighter of his generation. But Antonio Tarver shocked Jones and the boxing world in a May rematch. On September 25th, Jones fights to reclaim his legacy against the light heavyweight champ Glen Johnson. Roy Jones Jr. versus Glen Johnson, September 25th. The return of the once and future king.
Hey, I know it's late, but come on, it's Roy Jones. Last night in Memphis, Roy Jones challenged Glen Johnson for the IBF light heavyweight title. 2 years ago, Jones was the actual IBF champion, and Johnson, he was about to walk away from the sport after yet another dreadful decision. Last night they met. I'm joined tonight, as usual, by my old mucker, Richie Woodall. Richie, how do you see this one going?
Well, it's very important for Jones, obviously, to get back to winning ways, and it'll be interesting to see how much he's got left. You know, obviously, getting beaten by Tarver the last time out, getting knocked out, that was a sensational
Properly
knockout.
knocked out as well.
Oh, he was out cold, wasn't he? So, and before that, I think the two fights that he had with Tarver, before that, he looked invincible, he really did. But I really believe going up to heavyweight and beating John Ruiz, then having to come back down again, it's really played havoc with his boxing. He just doesn't seem to have the reflexes, but we'll soon see tonight whether he's got those reflexes, whether he's got that speed.
And we certainly will see. And joining us later on in this seat will be the voice of BBC Boxing, Big John Rawdon. He'll be here later. But right now we go over to the man with even bigger hair than me, Michael Buffer, in the ring in Memphis.
And now, for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it!
Well, it's very much decision time for the man so long regarded as pound for pound the best boxer in the world.
Wearing navy blue, official weight, 175 pounds, professional record, 49 victories, including 38 knockouts with only 2 defeats. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenger from Pensacola, Florida, the former middleweight, former super middleweight, former heavyweight, and former heavyweight champion of the world, Roy Jones Jr.
It is very, very strange indeed to hear the words challenger and former when referring to Roy Jones Jr.
Across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing white, official weight, 174 pounds. Professional record, 40 victories, including 27 knockouts, with 9 defeats and 2 bouts even. From Miami, Florida, presenting the reigning, defending IBF light heavyweight champion of the world, Glen, the Road Warrior Johnson.
Winning this title has meant so much to the man who did it to secure a future for his family. And the stage is set for this very first offence by Glen Johnson.
Roy, coach.
Referee Bill Glancy brings them together. The two 35-year-olds, and both of them having their 52nd professional contest.
Right where it is good. Right there, Glen. All right, gentlemen, we're into the rules in the locker room. We're fighting for the IBF Light Heavyweight Championship of the world. I want a good, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times and make sure you obey my commands. Any questions here? Questions here? Touch gloves. Good luck. Let's go to work. Anything at the top is good. Anything at the top is good.
Well, a packed house in Memphis, and this is all about confidence. And has Jones regained his confidence after that shock defeat in May at the hands of Antonio Tarver? And how much confidence did this man, the champion, can you believe it, after all those years, Glen Johnson gained from defeating Clinton Woods in Sheffield earlier this year? A fascinating contest and prospect. So the champion in white and Jones, and we must say it again, the challenger, an extraordinary thing that is to say, in blue trimmed with red. And this is an amazing start by Glen Johnson. He's coming steaming forward into Jones. And they talk about the challenger having to come to take the title away from the champion. Well, this champion, by the looks of it, is more than determined to hang on to the title that he laboured and slaved for so many years to attain. Good little left hand into the body from Jones, but it's Johnson being the more aggressive of the two. And this man, Jones, who's in his 26th senior world title, is under a little bit of pressure in the first round.
This is an incredible start by Glen Johnson, it really is. This guy's gone straight for Roy Jones. He knows there's mental scars from the Tarver fight and Roy Jones's make-up. This is incredible.
Well, Jones is determined, he says, to win this one and then have another go at Tarver and then reunite this light heavyweight division, which he has well, really ruled for so many years pretty successfully. And of course he stepped up to heavyweight, but he's coming under some heavy fire. That was a good short left hand once again, and Johnson really is giving the great Jones a working over.
Well, I can't understand Roy Jones's tactics. He's just standing there and letting this guy tee off on him almost. You know, this is what got him into trouble in the Tarver fight. He allowed Tarver to do exactly the same, and he came off second best. But Glen Johnson has just gone off like a lunatic.
Well, is the hunger still there from Jones? He's standing still. Johnson has only landed with a couple of decent shots and all that flurry. Jones has soaked up a lot of it, and maybe this is part of the Jones actual strategy in this contest. But, well, we saw what happened a few weeks ago at domestic level when David Hay burned himself out against the wily old Carl Thompson. Is this going to be a repeat of that here in Memphis?
Well, I don't think Glen Johnson is going to punch himself out. He's a wily old professional. But Roy Jones, you don't see Roy Jones getting hit like this by anybody.
Well, this is the most sustained period of pressure that I think anybody has ever seen Roy Jones absorb. He's been in with some great fights from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight, but he's been on the receiving end all the way through this round. There's another good left hand that's gone in from Johnson, and Johnson has dominated this round. Jones tries to come back, and after 2 minutes solid on the ropes, Jones still finds himself on the receiving end. What a great start by Johnson.
He just can't seem to get off the ropes, can Roy Jones. His legs are almost rooted to the canvas. You know, what we're seeing is perhaps is that time might have eroded the skills of this brilliant man.
Well, as we've said, they're both 35 years of age. This is fight number 52 for both of them. Jones much more experienced. That's a bit more like it from Jones. That left hand of his held very low indeed, but then we watched him do that throughout a glittering career, and he looked good for about 10 seconds at the end, and he smiles rather cynically, and I'm just wondering what is going through his mind. And again, we've got to say, how has he recovered from the Tarver hammering?
Watch when you're putting that stuff up there when I'm getting the mouthpiece on. Don't rush, don't rush. Take your time. Okay, you good defense on the inside. Good defense on the inside. Come on, keep staying tight like that. Keep working on the body, okay?
Well, Alton Murchison struggling for things to say to Roy Jones after that.
Land the left hook to the body and watch the uppercuts. All right, but you got it, baby. You're cool. Take a shot.
Well, I tell you, Johnson, well, they're saying to him he's cool, but needless to say, as far as I'm concerned, he was pretty hot in that first round.
He was so fired up. We're looking at two very proud men. Obviously, Johnson's taken so long to get himself to where he is now. Doesn't want to let it slip.
Work smart, baby. Work smart. Let's go. All right, let's go.
Well, everybody has just about got their breath back after that amazing opening 3 minutes on the part of Glen Johnson, born in Jamaica in Clarendon, resident now in Miami. Not desperately far away from Roy Jones, born and raised in Pensacola. Through two Floridans here in Memphis, Tennessee. Judges, incidentally, one from Tennessee, one from Kentucky, and one from Mississippi. IBF Light Heavyweight Championship of the World, held by the confident 35-year-old in white, who had 2 cracks at Clinton Woods. Perhaps should have won the first, got a draw, made no mistake about the second one. Clinton Woods still angling for a rematch if he can possibly manage it. But this is the big one for Johnson. This is the big payday for him. And we do remember what he said in Sheffield when he said this victory was to secure a future for his family and his 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. I think Jones, well, I wouldn't mind swapping bank balances with him at this stage of his career.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what tactics Roy Jones is going to adopt for this fight. You know, I don't know anybody that's moved up in weight successfully and then come back down and box at a lighter weight as Roy Jones has. You know, he moved up to heavyweight, he came back down to light heavyweight, and then he came unstuck. But here he is yet again at light heavyweight, trying to reclaim the championship that he once held.
Got himself caught around the corner. Right hand from the champion Johnson. Bill Clancy brings them together again. Well, it seems such a long time, and it is such a long time since Jones defeated our old Richie Woodall in the semi-finals of the light middleweight division in Seoul in 1988, and then was robbed in the final against a Korean. Jones moving a little bit more easily now. He's not allowing himself to get caught in the ropes as he was in the first round, but I still worry about that low left hand of his, and Johnson punishes him.
Roy Jones can smile all he likes, but the truth of the matter is, again in this round, he's just getting beat to the punch. He hasn't got out of the starting blocks very quickly. He's just taking his time, pot shot a little bit, but you know, the aggressor obviously is Johnson. Johnson wants his championship so badly.
Johnson, a late starter to boxing, didn't take it up until he was 20, didn't turn pro till he was 24. Had a couple of cracks at middleweight titles, lost to Bernard Hopkins, lost to Sven Otka, and then eventually it all came good, and he's determined, as we've said, to hang on to this. Slightly better round for Jones, but I think he's been on the receiving end. Very much Johnson's the first round, and I think Johnson may well just have edged this one as well.
Well, the pressure's obviously just come off a little bit from Johnson. He's not being as forceful as he was, but he's still landing the harder shots, and the accumulation of punches that he's throwing, he's outbeating Roy Jones.
Good solid right hand from Jones there. That's the first meaningful punch he's landed. He quite enjoyed that. It looked as if he was going to start to do a bit of showboating. Johnson, that clubbing round the corner and sometimes over the top right of his at the end of the round. Slightly better round for Jones, but for my money, I think Johnson's taken rounds 1 and 2.
Get you work the jab a little bit more. Put that buck in the middle, y'all. Work the jab. Work your jab a little bit more. Change up on it, okay? Nice strong. And throw the power shots, okay? Don't wait on your counter so much.
Well, Jones certainly looks nice and relaxed. He perhaps felt he weathered that storm, and they're just saying to Malcolm Murchison, just saying to him that this fellow hasn't got any stamina. I'm not sure about that.
Give me a lot of feints now. You land that right hand, come back with the hook, okay?
Punch him in his right arm, any way you can on the body. Shoot the right hand low. Shoot that right hand low. All right. Do not load up like that again. Don't load up like that. Don't showboat. Stay tight and right.
Get that ice, Joe. Get that ice.
It was fascinating to hear what's being said in respective corners. The schedule for 12 rounds, 2 gone. The first by a long way to Johnson. The second one, we think, to Johnson as well. And Roy Jones, who for a long time seemed absolutely unbeatable, is not getting anything like his own way the way he used to a few years ago.
Well, that was good advice from Johnson's corner. You know, they'll be saying to him, just hit anything. Don't load up when you're throwing your shots. Just hit anything, though. Arms, elbows, forearms, anything you like. Just don't go crazy in there.
Well, he's got Jones in exactly the same position that Jones found himself in for about 2 minutes, or nearly all of the opening round. Referee Bill Dempsey breaks him up this time. Jones on the retreat. Now, he sometimes allows opponents to do that. When he fought Clinton Woods, he just took his time and eventually was too strong for Clinton Woods.
It's a strange tactic that Roy Jones has seemed to have adopted for his last couple of fights. You know, he's content to go back, he's content to sit on the ropes, but you know, it's not really paying off for him. Now, we're used to seeing quick, sharp combinations from Roy Jones, plenty of lateral movement, but he's just content just to sit back on the ropes and try and fight this fight on the retreat.
He's trying to get through on the inside against Johnson, and the left hand is not really being effective. Nice little bit of the old Jones hand speed there, but again he's on the ropes, and Johnson is leaning on him. Johnson lighter by a pound, 174 to Jones's 175. There's another little short right hand from the champion, and when we say the champion, it's Johnson and not Jones.
It's another good exchange from both boxers, but again, you know, my money's just on Johnson. He just seems to be landing the more punches. He's throwing a higher work rate of punches. You know, he's not the kind of guy that's going to punch himself out, because he would have trained like a dog for this fight.
A little bit of the head in the face there, and just watch it from referee Bill Dempsey. That's a good piece of work by the official. Under a minute to go to the end of the third. Not much in this one. Johnson certainly being the more aggressive, but Jones landing with some pretty good counter shots, especially the left hand into the body. That's better from Jones. That's given him a little bit more confidence. Oh, that's lovely by Jones. Much better now. And again, Johnson has to cover up. Jones coming back now. Awful first round. Not such a good second, much better third.
Yeah, much better third round from Roy Jones, landing the cleaner shots, prepared to stand in trade now with Johnson and meet fire with fire.
But Johnson keeps plodding forward inexorably. Good right hand again by Johnson. Jones just slipped it very slightly. 15 seconds remaining. Is that little flurry all we're going to see from Jones in this round? I think the answer is yes.
Well, Jones isn't going to take Johnson out with one punch. He's going to put his punches together in bunches and really outwork this guy. Get back to standing in the middle of the ring.
Well, the only person to stop Johnson is Bernard Hopkins, who was in action last weekend, destroying the myth that was Oscar De La Hoya. He's breathing pretty heavily there. That round has taken quite a bit out of him.
The only thing is, you can't let him get off like that. You got to, once he starts getting up, just pop that jab. When he starts loading up like that, just pop that jab. You keep him honest. All right?
He doesn't like what you're giving him, Glenn.
Pace yourself. Let's go back to our work. You all right? All right, you got this. You got 1 minute to relax, baby. You got 1 minute. All right, stay to the
Well, a bit of action from that third round, and the first bit of genuine action we've seen from Roy Jones. A right hand and a clever little from the waist left to follow up. And another good right hand from Jones, and I think if anything, Jones might just have nicked that round.
Yeah, just with the cleaner punches that he actually landed. Landed some lovely little combination punches when he was backed up against the ropes there.
Here we go for the fourth. Maybe just a point between them at this stage. Again, judges at ringside, friend Steinwinder from Mississippi, Dan McClellan from Kentucky and from Tennessee, Gerald Deming. Jones on the retreat again, looking nice and relaxed, however. And there were signs in that last round that he might have just found one or two little gaps in the defence of the champion, Glen Johnson.
But we used to seeing there's more urgency about Roy Jones. We used to seeing that. We used to seeing Roy Jones fight from the centre of the rings and totally demoralising his opponents with pure hand speed. But he can only seems to be doing it in spasms.
Well, he has been a great boxer of the modern or indeed any other era. Made his pro debut way back in May of '89, ran up 17 consecutive KOs, and in May of '93 won his first genuine world title, the IBF middleweight title. He's held titles, remember, at middle, super middle, light heavy, and amazingly at heavyweight.
Well, we were there that night to see Roy Jones become heavyweight champion of the world, and it really was a sight to behold. His hand speed and lateral movement in that particular fight was fantastic. But again, he's got a different opponent in front of him tonight. He's got somebody that just won't take a backward step.
Well, Glen Johnson, and that's an old sort of cliche, but he learned how to lose before he learned how to win. Jones really, until Tarver, had only lost once, and that was a disqualification, which he avenged pretty quickly. But the Tarver thing, and he was lucky perhaps one or two people felt to have got the decision over Tarver the first time they met. Tarver left nothing to chance and caught him absolutely flush, and you wonder what sort of a message that has sent to the mind of Roy Jones.
Well, sure, you know, it does look like he's a little bit shell-shocked even in this fight to a degree. You know, the Tarver fight, I thought Tarver won the first fight, just nicked it, but then Tarver cemented that in the second fight. And now Jones is challenging again in this fight, so he can hopefully have a return with Tarver, but he's not having it all his own way.
Well, there's been mutterings about a Hopkins-Jones contest. That was a good right hand from Johnson. He may well have other ideas about that. Jones would have to go down to probably super middleweight. Hopkins would have to move up. Huge money involved, needless to say, and in America money talks. But at the moment, the man doing the talking with the old mitts is Glen Johnson.
Yeah, it's not all about Roy Jones anymore. It's not a Roy Jones masterclass. You know, Johnson just keeps backing him up. He just will not let Roy Jones take or dictate in this fight at all.
10 seconds.
10 seconds remaining, and Johnson has got himself back on top again. Looks very confident. Jones is really not doing very much. We haven't seen any of those flurries at all. That was a very passive round by Roy Jones, and Johnson was the aggressor all the way through. And Jones's corner, well, I don't know what Mr. Merkins is going to say to him.
Body working good. Keep that left side. Keep that left shoulder. Keep that left shoulder up now when he's doing it over here right, okay? That's what I'm saying, yeah. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it up.
Well, Jones has been around the block so many times, you wonder, does anything said to him actually penetrate at all?
On the inside.
If we can maintain this pace, we got this fight. That's what it's going to take. Keep working the way you're working. Watch the uppercut. He's trying to land the uppercut, all right?
Well, again, it's Johnson doing all the work, a little feint there, and wonderful right hand, and Jones wobbled ever so slightly and had to cover up. Good shot by Johnson.
Well, if Roy Jones is going to carry the left hand so low, he's got to expect that right hand to come over the top from Johnson. Now, Johnson is a real good seasoned professional. He knows his way around this ring, and he knows what pitfalls to look for from Roy Jones, and he will pay him if he makes the mistake.
Well, 9 defeats on the record of Johnson, including losses to Omar Sheiko and Silvio Branco, Hopkins, Sven Otka, and 1 or 2 others. But when it mattered most, and when he got the chance for the light heavyweight championship of the world, he almost got it the first time in Sheffield, and the second time he did get it in Sheffield. And here he is defending in Memphis. And again, he's got Jones in a little bit of trouble. He certainly got him in the corner.
So, you know, we're in a country where they score on aggression and accumulation of punches. And Glen Johnson hasn't taken a backward step, and he's throwing the bigger accumulation of punches. Therefore, the referee, or the judges, I should say, that are scoring this fight must have him ahead.
Certainly at this stage, I've got him 3 rounds to 1 ahead. Oh, there's that right hand again. Jones has got to be careful. He's going to pay the penalty. He's in a bit of trouble, Jones, and he really did wobble, and he's coming back a little bit. But Johnson has got him again. Maybe not the same concussive shot that Jones had to take when Tarver stopped him. But this is a great performance by Johnson, and you can see exactly why he beat Clinton Woods. And you can see exactly why he may well hang on to this unless Jones has other ideas. Back comes Jones. Oh, wonderful counter by Jones. Has he been fooling us all?
He does it well. It looks that way, but I didn't think he did. He took that shot flush from Johnson. His leg seemed to do a little bit of a dance, but then he come back with that lovely little flurry. But Johnson will not take a step back and will fight back at him.
Well, this is a great round of boxing, and we're really going to see what Jones is made of.
But as Johnson now looks a little bit tired, a little bit arm-weary, can't sustain that attack. Started this fight off at a really hard pace, but you can see his pace has just dropped, and he's starting to suck up those big gulps of air.
Again, Jones a little flurry. That was a good right hand, and a second good right hand from Jones. He's fighting back off the ropes. He may well turn this round around.
It's a fantastic round of boxing, but again, after that exchange, it's Roy Jones who wants to go back to the ropes. It's Roy Jones who wants to take cover, and it's Roy Jones yet again who needs to take big, deep breaths of air.
Well, Johnson, there is no getting away from it. He is in Jones's face all the way through. There's not much between them in this round. The first half very much to Johnson, and then Jones came back with some trademark counter-punching. Keep it up from the referee to Jones.
Both boxers looking a little bit tired now. It was a hard exchange. Roy Jones is grimacing from the face. I don't know whether he's actually hurt himself or he's just tired.
What a good round that was. Jones smiles. And back to the corner, and they'll be a lot more pleased with him after that last 3 minutes than they were with the previous.
Give me some in the ring, a little in the middle of the ring. So now don't stay in the ropes all the time. Okay, don't give him all he wants. Okay? Okay, you can switch it up. Don't stay on the ropes all the time. You're hurting this guy to the body.
You're taking this hard right now, G. Nice and relaxed. We got this?
Well, he's breathing very heavily yet again, but I think that's just his own way of getting that air into the lungs.
Well, he needs to.
You got his ass. You got his number. All right? Keep your hands going. Don't let him get off like that many shots.
What a good round that was. Look at Johnson coming forward, and Jones in all sorts of trouble, and there's that low left hand of his, and Johnson punished him, but amazingly Jones came back, and the hand speed from Jones is really terrific, and if he gets his defense right, who knows what could happen here. Well, this to take us up to the halfway point in this scheduled 12-rounder for the IBF Light Heavyweight Championship of the world. And at one stage, including 1 or 2 minor versions, Roy Jones held no fewer than 7 versions of the light heavyweight title all at one time. The WBC, the IBF, the WBA, the IBO, the WBF, the IBA and the NBA. Like alphabet soup.
But there are times in this fight where he looks every bit, he's 35 years of age. I know he's got another guy who's 35 years of old in front of him, but Johnson for me is ahead.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. One certainly round with Jones, I reckon. That last one maybe just about shared, but the other three so far going to the way of the champion. Jones trying to tease. Now, the corner said to him in the interval to try to take the centre of the ring and don't get yourself on the ropes, and he's fallen back into that little trap again, and this pace of this contest will suit Johnson.
It certainly will. Now, this fight is one for Roy Jones if he takes the centre of the ring and gets behind his jab, puts them sharp clusters of punches together, and then just takes big steps around the ring. But we're not seeing the urgency in his footwork, certainly not. The hand speed's there, but the feet won't move as quick.
It's Johnson who's getting off with the punches first, missing with that right hand. He's rather telegraphing that. Maybe susceptible to an uppercut if Jones can find the angle. Little feint by Jones, Johnson not being fooled by it. Got himself in great shape again. Lovely footwork by Jones. He turned his man and delivered a right, but there was nothing else behind it.
There was nothing else behind it. He slipped him, turned him nicely, dropped the right hand in, but he just didn't capitalise on it. He's content yet again to stand there and wait for Glen Johnson to force the fight.
Well, that's a rare intervention by the referee, Bill Glancy. This has been a great fight between two consummate professionals. Jones, for so many years, regarded, as we've mentioned, pound for pound the best boxer in the world, until his world caved in when Antonio Tarver caught him flush in May of this year in Las Vegas. And he's got a fair old bit to do if he's going to become the champion again. Johnson plugging away, and what I like about Johnson, his defence is excellent. He keeps those hands well up beside his head.
Oh, he's so tight with his defence, he really is. Look at this guy go to work. Got his head stuck right down, his chin is against his chest, so he can't get nailed with a clean shot, and he's just throwing his punches at will.
Well, it's textbook professional boxing from Johnson. There's the 10-second clapper.
It's a good exchange from both boxers there, but again, it's Johnson who's got the higher work rate.
And he's landing with the greater volume of punches, and they've all been pretty good punches. There was no little retaliatory flurry of any kind from Roy Jones Jr. And this is slipping away from him. Well, there's the man who defeated Jones, and he felt twice, but certainly once emphatically, Antonio Tarver. I wonder what he's thinking, and I wonder who he fancies in terms of the winner of this one. Indeed, who the winner is going to be. Is it going to be this man whom he's beaten already?
He's coming in now. He's got to stop him. He can just keep coming. You'll never hit him with some stuff. Try to turn around his left shoulder and get that left up.
Well, Antonio enjoying the plaudits from the crowd. I'm not sure Roy Jones is enjoying what's being handed out to him by Glen Johnson, but we've still half of this contest remaining.
All right.
All right, stay busy. Don't give him room. Stay on him. As soon as he hits you once, you answer right back.
Good advice.
It's good advice, but you know what Roy Jones' cornerback, he said to him, you've got to stand and trade with this guy. You've got to earn his respect. You've got to stand him in his tracks. You've got to find something from somewhere to turn this fight around.
And immediately it's Johnson who occupies the centre of the ring, and let's see who's going to throw the first meaningful shot. Jones teasing and cajoling, inviting Johnson to come to him, so we might just be able to pick him off. There's a wee bounce about the step now of Jones.
He needs it. You know, he's got to turn this fight around. He's got to find something from somewhere. I don't expect him to be on the back foot of the fight all the time.
Well, he's allowing Johnson to come to him. He's standing there and he's always inviting Johnson to come in. And Johnson is not the challenger, he's the champion. He's desperately determined to hang on to this title. And the opening exchanges in this stage going to Johnson.
But we've seen Johnson in a few fights now, and we know his history. We know that he's been into the other guy's backyard several times and come off with a bad decision. But I can't help but see if this fight carries on this way, how this guy couldn't possibly win or hang on to the championship. He's fighting the right kind of a fight. He's fighting this fight like he's the challenger.
Yeah, like our own Robin Reed, he went to Germany and lost on a decision to Sven Opka, but then everybody in the world did that. Yeah. Up to and including Father Christmas. Jones on the retreat, not really taking an aggressive stance or showing any real aggression at the moment. It's all been fairly passive from Roy Jones. It's very un-Jones-like.
Well, you know, we're a minute and a half into this round and we've had nothing from Roy Jones. We've had little jabs from Johnson, and he's the one again who's just dictating the pace of this fight.
Jones has got to do a bit more. One or two boos coming out from the crowd. I think they're rather annoyed with the way that Roy Jones is conducting himself. Just about a minute remaining. Wild swing there from Jones. His hands are held very low indeed. He really has to be careful. Great attitude from Johnson. Great stance from Johnson. And a well thought out and well constructed contest from Johnson.
Just one or two little punches there from Roy Jones, but again it's the defensive mode we're getting from him.
Gets the hands up Jones when Johnson throws the shots. A little right, and there Johnson goes into the body. And again, looking at the way they judge boxing here in the United States of America, this is going to be a Johnson round. And Jones has an awful lot to do. He may well have to go for the knockout at some stage.
Well, you know, Roy Jones for me isn't as strong at light heavyweight. He can't possibly be. He's been up to the heavyweight division where he could fight for 3 minutes of every round and just go to town. But what we're seeing now is spasmodic little performances from Roy Jones. He can only dish it out in little 10-second spurts, and then he goes back to the ropes and he sits there.
Good finish by Johnson. And it was a very, very quiet round from Roy Jones. He still looks as if he's got plenty in the tank. There's nothing in the way of marking on that well-defined face of his. But it's time, I think, they started giving him the proverbial kick in the backside if he's going to win this.
Okay, that round?
Yep.
Okay, I need a few more punches this round. Let's try to touch him a little bit, okay? Keep your hands out there a little bit. Let's wave at him a little bit and lock up some stuff. Just keep that one. You know how we used to work with Mullins? Just touch him and locking some power in? Because he got a straight line coming at you. You'll be able to find some holes now.
I wonder, do they think that their man is actually winning us or even close at the moment?
Now, what they're trying to do is just say to him,
hands on it.
you know, just touch him a little bit, try and frustrate him. Hold your hands out in his face and then hit him with one shot.
Don't let him get set.
Well, they can't be anything but happy with the performance of the champion, Glen Johnson. This is the 9th round. And Johnson is certainly, I would reckon, comfortably in front by 2 or 3 points. Roy Jones, apart from a little flurry and perhaps the 3rd or 4th, has produced very little of real quality. And he's going to have to stop the champion if he's going to become the champion again. Both 35, both 51 professional contests under their belt, but well, Jones by far the more experienced of the two. But how much did Tarver take out of him with that stunning shot away back in May of this year? There's that low left hand of Jones, and it's a good stiff jab by Glen Johnson, the champion. Really stalking his man.
Johnson's fighting the fight of his life, he really is. Again, none richer, what I've said before, he's waited so long for an opportunity like this to fight one of the big superstars of this weight division, and he's performing himself brilliantly.
Well, the ring caption actually fooled us a little bit. This is actually the 8th round. They put up the 9th for some reason, but don't worry about it, because all the way through the man in white has been dominating this contest. It's a very lackluster Roy Jones, and you wonder really what is going through his mind.
I'll tell you something, if Johnson can maintain this pace for another 2 rounds, you know, it's a shutout as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Jones is doing a little bit of posing, a little bit of posturing, but Johnson is not being fooled. And what I've liked about Johnson, that he's stuck to his boxing all the way through. He hasn't been phased, he hasn't been fooled, he hasn't had his feathers ruffled even when Jones occasionally has countered him. And he's been a model professional in everything he's done, his preparation and his application in this contest. But I've got to say, I think Roy Jones has been very disappointing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. He's, you know, both boxers are real like old school, but you know, Johnson for me has just done everything right in this fight. You know, Roy Jones has looked very, very lackluster. He looks mentally tired. He looks mentally drained.
So many boxers, when they get beaten for the first time, especially in the way in which he was beaten, they suddenly plummet into an abyss, and it's very hard to get back out of that abyss. We've seen it so many times down the years. 30 seconds remaining to the end of the 8th. 2/3 of this contest almost gone. And for most of the 2/3 of this contest, it's been the man in white, the champion, who's dominated. There's nothing coming back from Jones at this stage. This is an extraordinary fading by Jones.
He's really just getting, he's been outboxed and he's just getting out muscled. You know, Roy Jones, in a couple of rounds, once we get to the 10th round, he will need then the knockout to win this fight.
Well, even if he wins the last 4, I reckon he's still not going to win this one, but we'll have to wait and see.
The scoring is a very subjective thing. Let's see how the judges have scored this fight.
Yeah, well, hello, Mum. Roy Jones is not doing terribly well, I think. Yeah, I quite fancy this guy, Johnson. Well, what's the movie expression? Somebody up there loves me. Antonio Tarver is enjoying this. I'm not sure that Jones is enjoying it, and he does look tired.
You got 4 more rounds, okay? 4 more rounds. Okay? All right.
Have fun, baby. This is your title, baby. This is your show. I'm here.
Well, I'm not sure that Jones is having fun, and I'm not sure at the moment that it is his title, because this man has got the title.
To that left shoulder when he's trying to set.
All right, here we go.
There's an air of resignation in the Jones corner, which would worry me ever so slightly.
Well, sure, you know, boxing, scoring fights is a very subjective thing, but you can't but think that the judges have got Johnson ahead comfortably. I certainly have.
So this is the real round 9. They got the caption right, I'm glad to say. So 4 more rounds to go. And the man born in Jamaica some 35 years ago, the reigning IBF light heavyweight champion of the world, Glen Johnson, won the title for the future of his family and especially his children. Perennial loser, got some bad decisions, travelled all around the world, won here, lost there, never quite made it. Now he's up there and wants to stay. The great right hand! Oh, Jones is gone! What a shot by Johnson! And has he done a Tarver on Roy Jones? That was the best shot that Johnson has ever thrown in his entire life, and it's all over, and he stopped him in the 9th with an absolute gem of a dynamite finish. Jones is gone for the 2nd time, and he looks in bad shape, and I think Roy Jones, who looks like he's quite badly hurt, surely that must be the end of his career. The doctors are straight in. He paid the penalty. He looked not like the old Roy Jones at all, and this fellow who's just as old, 35, and look at him, he is ecstatic. It was a finish of the highest quality. He worked for it, he teed it up. I think and pray and hope that Roy Jones is going to be fine, but he was absolutely dumped with the best punch that Johnson has ever thrown or is ever likely to throw in a long and tough and ultimately successful boxing career. Dearie me, what a finish.
That was the only way you can describe that is incredible. It really is. It's been payback time for Glen Johnson. He's done it the hard way. To have Roy Jones spark like that, let's just hope Roy Jones is okay first and foremost. But he just looks so tired, as I said before, lacklustre. I'm sure it's a weight thing. More than anything else, it's a weight thing, because this guy's beaten some fantastic fighters over the years, and to see him knocked out as clean as this, it really is time for Roy Jones now to say, you know what, I've been there, I've seen it, I've done it, thanks very much, I've got to retire. There's no way back for him. There cannot be.
Well, he has slid right down that slope, and let's just hope that Roy Jones regains his consciousness. He's certainly speaking there. He's got the eyes closed. When he wakes up properly, the enormity of what has happened to him, I'm sure, will wash over him, and the waves of realization, I think, and hope, and make him realize that it's time to hang up the gloves and end what has been an extraordinary career for so many years, pound for pound, the best boxer in the world, and one of the best boxers the world has ever seen in terms of pound for pound rating, when through 4 divisions from middleweight up to heavyweight. There's the eyes open. Well, thank goodness for that. The doctor's straight in. They don't need the oxygen at this stage. He's looking round. I'm delighted to say that Roy Jones, I'm sure, will be fine, but look at this fella. he looks even more than 35 years old, but I tell you, he punched like a young mule. What a shot that was.
I tell you, that guy right now is going to take some holding. It makes the Tarver fight so much more attractive. They've both beaten this guy, Roy Jones, who pound for pound was the best fighter on the planet, but it's time to move over with the old boys and get the new boys through the rankings, you know, but they're no spring chicken.
Well, Roy Jones is up. I'm really pleased to say that Roy Jones is up, and he looks so disconsolate, he looks so down, and I'm not surprised. Well, Tarver, I think, he can't believe it. Look at the expression on his face. And Tarver is on the phone to somebody, I'm not sure whether it's his manager or his agent, and saying, do I want Glen Johnson or don't I want Glen Johnson?
Well, you know, if Tarver and Johnson do square off,
well, it could be an extraordinary meeting. Look at that low left hand, and what a shot. It was right up on the temple, just midway between the ear and the left eye, and he took it flush, and he went down like the proverbial sack of spuds. Here it is again. What a shot.
It's a fantastic right hand, but again, the left hand from Jones was just down by his waist. He was begging to get it. He was begging to get the right hand from Johnson over the top, and over he goes, like you say, like a sack of spuds. It's a sad sight to see, but it's all about this man now, Glen Johnson.
He is the man. He is the man. What, well, old Stoneface himself, an extraordinary performance by this fella, and who's to say that he certainly doesn't deserve it. And we'll have a look maybe sometime later on at how the judges had scored it. We reckon that he was at least 4, possibly 5 rounds ahead at that stage before he stopped it, but he left nothing to chance. Here's the official verdict.
Here in Memphis, Tennessee, the end comes at 48 seconds of round number 9. The winner by knockout victory, and still the IBF light heavyweight champion of the world, Glen Johnson.
How nice to see him smile. Jamaican born, lives in Florida, and is still the IBF light heavyweight champion of the world. And will we see Roy Jones in a ring again? I hope for his sake that we don't. Good luck to Roy Jones, and thanks for all the years, but time to call it a day.
Glen, what was your plan coming into this fight? Did you think, based on his being knocked out in the last fight, that he might be a little gun shy?
No, I didn't know if he was going to be gun shy or not, because each man respond differently to a knockout. So, you know, it's a matter of opinion if he's going to be shy or not. My game plan was come in and beat him at all costs. If it come to the decision, beat him at that. Make sure you do enough work through each round. Make sure you throw enough punches through each round. And if the knockout come, take it. That's my game plan all along.
You stayed in his chest. Was the idea of that to not give him a chance to use his speed from outside?
Well, you know, a lot of guys who fight Roy, they stay just outside his punch and let him jump in with single shots. And he fast with that one single shot. Sometimes he run off 2 and he jump back out, slide out to the side. I decided that I wasn't going to let him jump in. I was going to stay in place where if he throw that punch, I have the opportunity to throw a punch as well. You know what I mean? So stay close enough where either you're going to throw the punches faster than me, better than me, and knock me out, or I have an opportunity to do the same.
Were you a little anxious in the first round the way you launched into him, or did you want to send him a message?
I just wanted to send a message that, hey, I'm here to fight. So unless you're ready to fight, you're going to have a long night.
Did he ever hurt you?
No, he never hurt me.
I mean, you're not known as a knockout puncher. Why did you knock him out?
Well, I changed a lot of things since people seen me last. You know what I mean? That's why they don't know. I've been fighting overseas. Me, my trainer Orlando Cuellar, and we've been working on a lot of different things. My manager been working the phones trying to get me the right fights. My promoter been doing the same thing, trying to get me the right fights.
Could you feel him weakening as the fight went along?
As a matter of fact, I was just touching him anywhere I could. Touch him to the body, touch him to the head, and I know from being a boxer, those punches going to weaken you. Doesn't matter what kind of mechanical you have.
Let's take a look at the knockout, and you describe what happened.
Well, right there, I was just stepping to him. I said, let me throw a jab, and I didn't see him respond, so I said, ready, right on that. And there it was. I looked for him for the left hook, and I barely tapped him there, and I wanted to come with another punch, but he wasn't there. So I just step around him and just keep moving out the way so the referee can do his job.
Were you surprised at all that he wasn't as quick as we normally would see him in his prime, that he was easy for you to hit?
Well, my speed was offsetting his speed. He and I the same age. You know what I mean? I'm the older man in the ring by a few days. So I don't see why he wouldn't have his speed. I have mine.
Would you now like to fight Antonio Tarver instead of Roy Jones?
I fight any man in the world. I'm not the best. I'm just the guy you're willing to fight the best. And all who say they're the best and claim the best and the media say they're the best. I'm here to fight them all. I'm not ducking or hiding from no man.
You got to love Glen Johnson. The life he's had, I just love it. I really do. But is that the end for the legend that was Roy Jones? Well, speaking of legends, we're finally joined by another one, the BBC's very own John Rawlin. He's made it down here.
Hi, Steve.
John, do you consider that the end?
I really do. I think that Roy Jones looked like a shot fighter in that fight. He just couldn't miss him, could he, with those right hands? The knockout could have come earlier than it did. He just loaded up again and again, and it was. I heard Larry Merchant there talking about whether he had the resolve, whether he was gun shy. That wasn't a case of being gun shy. It was a man who couldn't get out of the way. He took his licks, Roy Jones, but he just got, in the end, it was target practice for Johnson. I could hardly believe what I was seeing.
If anything, Jones was too brave, especially in the opening couple of rounds. Which, I mean, you know, you're facing the first round, you're up throwing punches.
Yeah.
What do you know when you see the Roy Jones we've seen over the last so many years, the Roy Jones you fought, and then when you see that guy that came out in those opening 2 rounds and just stood there, what was going through your head?
I couldn't believe what I was watching, to be quite honest there. I was absolutely amazed, because I thought, with all due respect to Glen Johnson, I thought 75% Jones would have the speed and skill to just dance around him and beat him on points, clearly. But I'll tell you what, it was a classic case there of the will was greater than the skill. That kid Johnson, he wanted it more than anything. You know, you got to remember, he's both 35, but this guy has been to hell and back in his career. He's had so many controversial decisions against him, and he's just not going to let this title go. And that was a classic display for me. It was just solid front foot fighting.
There were points there, John, when he wasn't getting away from that right hand. And when you look at the knockdown, if we can see the knockdown again, you know, he's just trapped on the rope. There's no attempt to move. There's no attempt. You know, just. If you're a commentator commentating on that, well, John, what do you do?
Well, physically, he just doesn't look the same man that he did 3 or 4 years ago. And look how heavily he falls there. I mean, he was never getting up from that one. This is just not the same man who was fighting James Toney and Bernard Hopkins a decade ago. I pay full credit to Glen Johnson. That's a great performance. But you know, Roy Jones in his prime would have run rings around him, and he's just not the same man.
He would have. And the thing is, as well, that was a great example of just textbook boxing from Johnson. High right hand, going in behind the jab, creating the opportunity, and then banging that right hand through. It was just great stuff, schoolboy stuff in a way, textbook stuff. Nice high guard behind the jab, create the opening, and follow in with the power shot.
And we hear these amazing stories that Roy Jones trained for this fight by playing basketball, because you know, in his mansion there, which he's got in Pensacola, you open a door from the living room and you're in a basketball court. I mean, if those things are true, because he seemed to have completely abandoned the basics.
Well, he's a legend in his own mind, isn't he? There's no question about it. He certainly doesn't. He certainly doesn't lack self-belief and confidence, does he?
Or cash.
But or cash, you know.
And not only that, I think that he just lacked his speed there. He's always had that low, relaxed guard, but every time people have tried to get to him, he's been so fast with the combinations. Then he skipped away. There, the speed had gone. He was just allowing Johnson in.
He couldn't miss. It was again and again that overhand right, just turning it in there, and he couldn't miss. It was a knockout waiting to happen.
Okay, so we know what Johnson did right and we know what Jones did wrong, but why did Jones, you know, how was Jones at 35, with all those skills, all those great performances in his past, beating Bernard Hopkins hands down, beating James Toney hands down, gaining 2 stone and beating John Ruiz hands down? What's gone wrong in 18 months?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Steve, and I'm not for one moment suggesting that this is the only factor, but 4 years ago it's a documented fact that Roy Jones failed the drugs test. And he was fortunate, in my opinion, not to have been punished a great deal more severely than he was.
He had to pay $500 or something stupid.
We're now in a new era in the United States where they're looking at eradicating drugs from sport. The United States Anti-Doping Agency is as strong as any in the world right now, and they are testing athletes, boxers included. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the fact, but it makes you wonder.
I think also what you've got to remember as well, that was his 25th world title fight. His 52nd contest. He's been at the top for 10 or 15 years, whatever it is. You know, the time catches up with everyone. And boxers always think they're better than what they are. And Jones there, before the fight, was shouting from the ring, I'm back, I'm back. Afraid not, son.
Bit of old-fashioned hunger as well from Johnson, you know. Just think a year ago, he was fighting that draw against Clinton Woods. He couldn't believe, he thought he'd won that fight, but he's just turned his life around completely.
Well, that could be the end of Roy Jones, and speaking personally, I want it to be the end of Roy Jones. There was another fight on the undercard in Memphis last night, and it was Mark Johnson defending his WBO super flyweight title against the relatively unknown Angel, as that's what they say in Spain, that's what Michael Buffer says, Angel Hernandez. We join it in the 6th.
Well, youth has its place in any sport, and at 21 years old in Hernandez, now this is his big opportunity. That'll be enough to fire him up. Johnson, on the other hand, has got the experience. You know, he's a lot older. The southpaw, yet again, needs to listen to what his corner have said. Put some distance between him and this guy. Just pick him off at range. Keep slipping in the jab, show him the jab, hit him with the straight left, and then move off. He can't afford to stand there and trade with the young lion.
Well, he is a young lion who started professional boxing when he was just 18 years of age. Just that one little blemish, and that was a draw against one Rafael Chavez, and that was in February of 2003. But everything before and everything since, he's won, and won pretty impressively.
See, what we're seeing now is a complete change of tactics from Johnson, throwing his punches at range and not standing still once he's thrown them, moving out right and left.
A couple of good southpaw rights going in there from Johnson. Just looking nice and relaxed, and he stands almost at 90 degrees to his opponent, and if anything, Hernandez is a little bit on the square side. Left hand from Johnson again, a little bit on the low side, but referee Armando Garcia not that bothered.
It's a much better round of boxing though from the champion. You know, putting together nice little jabs, slipping off to the right after that, not allowing this young boy just to stand up and tee off on him.
Hernandez trying to come back now. The opening part of this round dominated by the right of Johnson. And some good defense by Johnson. Hernandez is not leaving him alone. He's all over him. Sliding right hand there, and Johnson just managed to ease out of the way of it. Hernandez looks very strong indeed, and he is big for a super flyweight. He might even go up perhaps to bantamweight.
Well, yeah, in time. Oh, he walked onto a lovely shot there from Johnson.
He staggered, and Johnson's got him again. And Hernandez, just as we were singing his praises, walked onto a couple of shots which he didn't need to take. Now he looks like he's regained his composure, and he didn't use the old crow's trick of hanging on. He stood back, and Johnson could end this if he can get the punch together. Now Hernandez is holding on, and he's threatening to be stopped here in this 6th round. And Johnson, who on certainly my card was behind by a round or two, has come back into this, and this is very much the champion's round. And the young challenger got a wee bit on the careless side. There's another great right hand, and Hernandez, well, I'm not quite sure he knows what he's doing. He's showboating a little bit, but there's a wobble there of the knees, and this is a great round from the champion. And Johnson is living up to his name, and in this round he has been too sharp. Can he finish it? Don't think there's time. Hernandez's hands are held very low indeed, and he may just be good enough to see out this round. What a bad round for the challenger, and what a great round for the champion.
Surprisingly from Johnson, you know, he came back from the brink there of just almost doing nothing. He was just boxing well within himself and then pulled out that big shot. What did surprise me though with Johnson was that he never went in behind the jab. He just went in to try and knock this kid out and never done it.
That very nearly was a calamitous round for the challenger. He survived it. Well, they reckon that Johnson is going to punch himself out. I'm not so sure about that. But that was a tough round for Hernandez. And Johnson all of a sudden found the range a little faint by Johnson, and look at that, the left hand of Hernandez was nowhere at all. He paid the penalty.
Well, yeah, paid the penalty. I mean, right here and now he's out on his feet, but Johnson now should have gone in behind the jab and set up that combination again, but he's trying to knock this kid out. I mean, he's winging these punches in from the floor. What a sweet right hook.
Yeah, it was a great little exchange. Johnson now looking very, very confident indeed, this little southpaw champion. In this WBO super flyweight title fight, the second defence of the title he won in August of last year. Majority decision over the excellent Fernando Montiel. Johnson all in white. Hernandez from Mexico City, just 21, 12 years his junior in white and red. And Hernandez looked for all the world as if he was gone at the end of that last round. And how much a difference that minute's rest is going to make, well, we're about to find out.
There's real urgency behind Hernandez's work now, though. You know, he knows he's been hit and hurt, so he doesn't want to get caught like that again.
And he walked onto another little right hand. He's got to keep that left of his up, and Johnson will try and expose that. That was low.
It was unintentional. All right, it's okay to keep. The kid can ham it up. It was unintentional. I don't think it was actually that low.
And maybe, of course, he was under pressure at the end of that round and wanted a little bit more breathing space, and he's got it. Looks across at Johnson as if to say, come on, you're 12 years older than me, you shouldn't be doing that to me.
Johnson's not about to get disqualified for that. It's his first infringement of the whole fight.
You're absolutely right, Jim. So back they come again, the shorter squatter champion, former IBF flyweight champion of the world.
See, this is what Johnson does best. He boxes best at range. Doesn't have to get involved with this kid. He keeps slipping in that jab, try and frustrate him a little bit. Plenty of lateral movement. It's better from the champion.
Well, I think despite the pressure that Hernandez came under towards the end of that last round, he's still certainly ahead, I think, at this stage, but there's not much between them. Hernandez coming forward now. The head seems to have cleared. Oh, good right hand. What a stonking little shot from Hernandez. And it was Johnson who let the defence go. Maybe he was too casual. He's up at 8, has a look at his corner, and his dad is telling him to come forward. But that was a great shot by Hernandez, and that's going to give the youngster so much confidence. And now it's Johnson who has to be at his very best. We saw Hernandez recovered from a couple of good shots. Can Johnson recover from an absolute peach? And he sensibly, unlike Hernandez in the last round, is holding on.
Well, he needs to rely on all that experience now just to fiddle and get through the rest of this round. You know, he's been on the seat of his trunks, and he knows now that this kid means business and can fight. Can't afford to be sloppy, got to tighten up that defence. Yet again, we see the right hand of Johnson down by his waist, wide open to that big looping right hand.
Well, this is going to be a 10-8 round to Hernandez. And although he probably lost the last round, he's certainly more than regained his advantage. And look at the bounce on the youngster now. Johnson has got to be very cautious. Hernandez fancies this. That was another good right hand, and again Johnson comes back at him. This is turning out to be a terrific super flyweight scrap.
It certainly is. In terms of quality of punches, they're both throwing real good quality punches. It's Johnson who looks disorientated now. His head hasn't quite cleared from that shot.
Well, let's see which corner he tries to go to. He hasn't been too sure earlier on, and he's wobbling. He's going the long way. Always seems to take his time about going back to his corner. Goes walkabout. Maybe he just wants to clear his head. And they're saying to him, "Come on, we're over here. Get yourself sat down and listen to what I have to say."
Look, you bullshit! Keep your hands here! The water!
One time.
Get the water, man! Get me the water!
You behind though, Mark.
You're behind! You're behind, man!
Well, he certainly is behind. Look at that. What a wonderful shot. And how beautifully he just turned the wrist over. Got maximum torque in that. It was a perfect punch.
Straight down the pipe, as they say.
Yep, Johnson looking right. Maybe somebody is passing the judges' scores to him. But he must know that he's behind, and he must know that he's got up the work rate to keep this title. It's still there for him.
You gotta do! Let's go!
Well, 7 rounds gone. The first knockdown going the way of the challenger. The young fella, the orthodox boxer in the white trunks trimmed with red, the 21-year-old from Mexico City, known as Choco. Ivan Hernandez, better by Johnson, in and out beautifully with the southpaw right and then the left. He's got to start picking up a scoring shot or two here, Johnson. Wasn't a bad left again, using all that cleverness of his and all his ring craft. The head seems to have cleared.
Yeah, so far, if Johnson uses his silky boxing skills, you know, he'll get through this fight. But when he stands and trades with this guy, that's where he seems to come unstuck. It's youth against experience, and so far, young Hernandez is coming off best.
Well, he's boxing like a veteran, and he's only 21 in Mexico, especially in these lower weight divisions. Churns out champion after champion after champion.
They should make this kid the president of the Who Needs Him club, and I'm not so sure how well they've done their homework, but look at this kid now go to work.
Well, he has been compared to Chavez and Barrera. There's a bit to go as far as those two greats are concerned, but at the moment he's looking reasonably good, and when they stand and trade, I quite fancy him against the champion Johnson.
Well, the southpaw style hasn't posed him with any problem whatsoever.
None at all. Johnson trying to dig into the ribs, and now Hernandez, having learned from the lesson of a couple of rounds ago, is covering up much better. And his work rate is very impressive, and it's this work rate is causing Johnson all the problems, and Johnson is leaning on, and there are signs of tiredness now coming through from Johnson, and Hernandez looks daisy fresh.
Believe it or not, this kid's actually upped his work rate. I mean, he's trying some very good shots, very quality shots. This will take far more out of Mark Two-Shot Johnson than it does Hernandez.
Right from Johnson was on target, but Hernandez didn't even blink, and that's very disconcerting. This is a great scrap. The referee hasn't had to do a thing. This is professional boxing at its very best. 40 seconds to go. Johnson looking for a big finish to the round. He's just been outworked, doing reasonably well in these close exchanges, but the man who's first to the punch and the more accurate with the punch has been Hernandez, the challenger. He's got him again, right in the midriff. And that's the one that really hurts. That is the one that really hurts. Ask Oscar De La Hoya about that, and it's all over. Well, he has done a Hopkins on Johnson, and the new champion is the 21-year-old Choco from Mexico City. Ivan Hernandez had his man down with a great right hand to the chin, and then he gets him down with a wonderful shot into the midriff, and that's the one that hurts. And as Oscar De La Hoya said, when you land like that, it's not a question of clearing your head, you're in such pain.
Well, the body shots will stay with you. Johnson now is still feeling the pain from that body shot. I myself have lost fights with body shots. It's just it's a crippling experience. But Johnson made the massive mistake of standing and trading with a young kid that obviously knows how to fight on the inside. If he'd have kept it nice and long, I said he should have used his experience and skill, keep it nice and long, get to the end of the fight, stay champion. But what did he do? Goes bravado, throws it all out the window, stands in trade, comes off second best.
Well, he's in tears, Ivan Hernandez. At 21 years of age, he's become the WBO super flyweight champion of the world, and on this performance he's going to be around for quite a while. He's big enough and tall enough perhaps to move up to bantamweight, but he won a couple of defenses of this title and a couple of decent paydays. But he has emerged as another serious Mexican boxer in the lower weight categories. And what a spectacular finish. Johnson, we're glad to say, is fine. He looks hugely disappointed. Whether he comes back or not from that at 33 years of age, I'm not sure Hernandez will want to give him a rematch. I'm not sure Johnson would want a rematch, at least not for a month or two. And this is the new champion. And now there's that grin all over that boyish face. And he has produced a spectacular body shot to win his first major world title. Well, they can't believe it in the corner. They are so pleased with him. They are so pleased with him, and he did it in great fashion. Only very rarely did the champion trouble him, and when he did trouble him, the youngster came straight back.
Great fight. You guys won. You've always been one, baby. You know what?
There they are standing toe-to-toe, and he opened him up a little bit, and the elbow and the shoulder came through, and the referee is having a good look, and there was that shot right through the middle. Wonderful punch, and Johnson froze for a moment, and then all of a sudden the pain took over, and the waves of pain just simply overwhelmed him, and he was put down to the canvas. It was delivered quite beautifully, and it almost was a delayed reaction shot. Armando Garcia came straight in and knew straight away that it was over.
Richie, you felt that, didn't you, boy? You did, I could see it.
I certainly did. That was a super shot, it really was. One of those punches in the midriff, obviously the solar plexus is the point to hit, and that was bang on the button. And believe you me, Steve, I've been hit with a few of them, and there's no getting up from that type of shot. That was pain, that was, and that was a guy who was obviously 33, experienced, knows the game inside out, but he couldn't get up from that, no way.
And of course the big problem, John, they didn't really try hard enough in the 6th and 7th rounds, did they?
That was extraordinary, that 6th round, and you see just how fit and how strong that lad is to come out of that right hand and then go back at Johnson in the way that he did. I think Johnson actually punched himself out a little bit in that round, and he wasn't the same again. But you know, it's another on the Mexican production line, isn't it? Where do they get them from? It's one after another.
Well, they certainly do get them. We've got a special treat tonight. We've got one of my favourite fighters of all time, and we sent Big John along to meet him. Tonight we've got Larry Holmes.
Larry, tell us, how did you get into boxing in the first place?
Well, as a youngster, I've always been athletic inclined. I like to play sports, all kinds of sports. But what happened was I dropped out of school in early age, and my sporting activities stopped. I had nothing else to do but box. Later on down the road, I got involved with the Olympic Committee, and I started boxing in the Olympics. I won 4 titles as an amateur. Didn't make it to the 1972 Olympics, and after that, I turned professional, and here I am.
Who were your early inspirations? You know, who did you look at and think, gosh, I'd like to be like him?
Well, you know, Ali gave me my inspiration. Ali gave me my inspiration, but my mom used to talk about fights like Joe Louis and people like that. She used to hear them fight on the radio, and everybody back then, I guess, talked about Joe Louis. And but I was intrigued by Muhammad Ali because he talked and talked and talked, and then he said he can do something, and he done it. He backed it up. So I was intrigued by that. But when he fought Sonny Liston, I was hoping Sonny Liston would beat him because he would talk and talk.
Why did you learn to regard Ali in a different way? Because you say in 1964 you wanted Liston to beat him, but by 1972 he's a hero. What changed?
Well, you know, he gave me a job in 1971. He gave me a job working with him as a sparring partner, and let me travel with him, be around him, and I was able to see how he really was, and had a heart of gold. And that turned me on to it, especially giving me the opportunity to say I'm working with Ali. Even though he beat me up, I was happy with that because I was getting beat up by one of the great fighters.
I just ask you about Zaire. What are your memories of Africa, of that fight?
It was mind-boggling to be in Africa. When we first landed in Africa, because I was on the same plane with Muhammad Ali, it was wow. All the Africans surrounded the airplane with music, hollering Ali, and I mean, it was mind-boggling. It was an experience that I probably would never ever have again.
The atmosphere must have been just incredible.
Yeah. You look around, you don't see, but you see 200,000 black people in the audience. How many days you can see all black people in the audience, you know what I mean? Everywhere you look is black people, you know what I mean? Most of the time when you go to a big fight arena where you look around, all you see is white folks. But you look around, black people, where's the white people at, you know? You see a white guy there, white there, you know, but damn, whoa, you know, this is kind of mind-boggling.
Did you honestly think that Ali was going to produce what will be remembered as one of the great wins of his career?
I knew he could beat George Foreman then, and George was again a robot, stiff. I watched George fight many times. I watched him come out of the Olympics, and I thought Ali had to do his move on him and jab on him, but I never thought that he was going to use the rope-a-dope.
What's your opinion of Foreman as a fighter?
I don't think he can fight now. I didn't think he can fight then. And one of the things that he's always been afraid of, his name is Larry Holmes. He's been afraid of me. He never wanted to fight me. That's why we never fought. George Foreman is not the person that everybody thinks he is. And I tell it, and I don't mind repeating it. And to him, it's a big phony. He's not the nice guy, you know. He's not a nice guy like me. I'm a nice guy. You talk to me right now, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah, you're a nice guy.
But right now, he would get mad at you, you know what I mean? And he the only person that George Foreman wants to build up is George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali puts on his butt. He'll say, oh, Ali's the greatest. He'll think about all the, you say, who's the greatest fighters ever? Name is, give me a top 10. My name won't even be remembered. He would never say Larry Holmes. So, he don't like me, and I don't give a darn, and I don't like him.
Tell us about the time that you got into the ring against Ali, the man who's been your idol and somebody who you've looked up to, and yet there you were having to fight him and inflict pain on him.
Well, you know, it was tough to a certain extent, but I had a mindset, him or me, better him than me. You know, I didn't want to hurt nobody because I'm not a mercenary. That ain't my business. My business is to get in there and make them surrender and get out without getting any pain inflicted on me.
By then, of course, you'd already fought Ken Norton. I remember that fight as being one of the most thrilling heavyweight fights you could ever wish to see. Do you think that was one of your finest hours? I think it was one of my finest fights, but I thought maybe, you know, I could have been a little bit better. And the reason why 3 days, 4 days before the fight, I pulled a ligament in my arm, and I thought that was going to hinder me from fighting. Kenny Norton was a tough guy. He was very aggressive. He punched hard, and he didn't like me. So, you know, that made the fight even harder by him not even liking me. So I had to do what I had to do, and my arm was working pretty well, and I know to stay on the outside in boxing because he wanted to knock me out, so he's going to have to come forward. That's my game, because my best game is circle, moving side to side, back and forth, in and out. And he done that, and I came out victoriously. Tell me, who was the man who hit you harder than anybody else?
There's only one guy that hit me hard that I still can remember. 25 years later, I said to him and to everybody, I still feel the pain. And that guy's name was Ernie Shavers. Ernie Shavers punched me. I mean, he hits real hard. I mean, I always tell people this about Ernie Shavers. If he didn't hit me as hard as he hit me, he didn't knock me out. I think he hit me so darn hard, my body shook and it woke me up, you know. But I knew that I had to get up from that punch because that's how hard he hit me.
Tell us about the fight with Jerry Cooney, because that was huge, wasn't it? Absolutely massive. It captured global attention. Jerry Cooney fight and I was a good fight. It was a great fight, but it was built on something that nobody wanted it to be, because it gets ugly when you put black against white, race against race, but we all got children. And when people do that, because sometimes it just messes the whole thing up, and it creates a lot of animosity around the world, even though it would have been a great fight, but they had to put a little bit extra in there because they wanted to make it a greater fight. But Jerry Cooney and I had respect for each other then, and we still have respect for each other now, because we do a little work together now. But I had respect for him then, but with the manager side on this side, my side, and management on his side, would keep the fuel burning. They wanted to, Larry Holmes hates you, Jerry. He said this, he say that. Jerry said this, Jerry said that about you, Larry. Jerry, it ain't no good. He said this, we should do this. He said you black, and you say he's white, you do this, let's do this. And it created a lot of animosity, and the newspaper was eating it up. And the people wanted to come, everybody. They said that was one of the highest grossing fights in boxing history. What was your relationship like with Don King? We had a love-and-hate relationship, which we have now. Don King hate to get in the money, and I love to get it. But Don King, he's very good at what he does. I just think he negotiates too hard, and he takes when he shouldn't take. But I think as for promoting goes, he's done a lot for the game of boxing. He did a lot for the boxers themselves. Now, boxing is going to be really hurting when Don King steps out of there, when he's too old. It's going to happen one day. Yes, he's going to be. And who's out there to do it? Boxing is going to be heading downhill as it is already, because they ain't got no good fighters out there. Why do you think that is? Well, you know what it is. I'm telling you, back in the 70s and 80s, which I was knock on wood, thank God that I was a part of that. They had NBC, CBS, ABC, HBO. They had USA Network. They had all the other networks. Everybody was able to see free TV. People get to know you, free TV. Today, they don't have free TV. Every time you turn around, you got to pay $50 to watch a fight.
And if you don't be one of the top names, they don't get to see you because you're not on TV. ABC and them guys on NBC or all the networks are not showing free boxing. Everything you got to pay for it. You got to pay for it. You got to pay for it.
When you look back to the 1980s and your time as the #1 in the world, how good an era do you think that was?
I think it was a great era. People would say it was almost on the down, on the decline, but it wasn't. You still had Muhammad Ali, you still had Kenny Norton, you still had Ron Lau, you still had a lot of great fighters, Jimmy Young. You had a lot of great fighters out there. But what happened was they said it was on the decline because I was the man. I would beat them all. I was winning all the fight. They said, oh, they too old. They always try to find a way to put me down and not give me the credibility that I was deserving for beating these guys.
Do you think you were in a no-win situation following Muhammad Ali?
I was in a no-win situation. I was damn if I did, damn if I didn't. That's what I told Muhammad Ali when I fought him. His mind was making it a date that the body can't keep. At that time, he was 38 years old. They say he was an old man. I fought until I was 52. I mean, come on, give me a break, you know? And he was 38, and he was old. You know, maybe he was old in mind, but it wasn't, to me, he was another guy out there going to take my head off if I wasn't ready, prepared for him. And I got prepared for Muhammad Ali. He's just another thing that they want to do to take away the credit from my legacy.
You came so close to getting Rocky Marciano's record, to emulating that and beating it. Do you think there were maybe forces at work when you look back then who kind of decreed, we actually don't want Larry Holmes to do that?
You just said it. Your mouth has said a whole lot of things just now. And I understand it. And it don't bother me. It bothered them. They have to live with it. I don't. I know what I felt and did. And even though it could wobble back and forth a little bit, I felt that I was victoriously.
The press kind of led you into saying a couple of derogatory things about Rocky Marciano. You said he's not fit to carry my jockstrap. You regret that?
Right. Because that's a slang that athletes use. And there's no harm, or you can't carry my golf club. You know, you can't carry my football or basketball or something, you know. Jockstrap was just another slang. And I picked it up from a guy in the gym with Joe Frazier when I was young. Yeah, that Joe can't carry my jockstrap, you know. It mean nothing by it, just the slang that people use. But I regret it now because I let it happen, because I don't supposed to let people get under my skin. I don't supposed to let you piss me off and make me mad.
I hope you don't. I hope I don't.
I don't supposed to do that. You know, I was supposed to be a man that be able to control myself. You know, and I wasn't able to do it back then.
How good do you think Mike Tyson was?
1 to 10, put him in the middle. He was at his time, at his size. You know, he was great. But if he put him right there with us, when we Joe Frazier out there, Muhammad Ali, Kenny Norton out there, Ron Lyles out there, Jimmy Young out there, Larry Holmes, those guys was tough, strong, fight you all day long. I don't think Mike could. Well, it's proven that he can't take it now with these guys. So he wouldn't have been able to take it then.
You think if you could have gone in the ring when you're absolutely at the top of your game, maybe 31 years old, you think you'd have beaten him?
40. I would have beat him at 40 years old.
What went wrong, do you believe, the night you shared the ring with Tyson?
2 years, no trading. 2 years of hanging out, singing with a band. 2 years of drinking Budweisers, beer, you know, hanging out, singing. That beat me. That beat me because I wasn't in shape.
There's a lot of people speak about the difficulties of his background, of his upbringing, but you yourself came from a tough background, didn't you?
Most fighters do. Most fighters come from poor neighborhoods, broken families, and most fighters are Latin or black, you know, or Hispanics or whatever, and they come from poor backgrounds. Anybody who goes into the ring, you don't find a young kid and his father got $100 million fighting. You find that kid in school getting an education to go to college,
Larry, what did you think of Lennox Lewis?
I think Lennox Lewis is lacking of heart. I think he could have been, and still probably could be one of the great fighters, but he got to learn how to do it. Because I challenged Lennox Lewis when I was 48 years old, and he says, "No, you got a good jab." I said, "I'm an old man." He said, "Yeah, but you can still fight." I said, "You don't want to fight nobody that can't fight." I said, "But you can beat me, because I'm an old man." He said, "No, I ain't going to fight you." I said, "You know, hey, when when I was young, and you bring a 48-year-old guy in the ring with me, I beat him up." There's no 2-3 ways about it.
So you think he was overrated, do you?
He didn't do nothing to be rated. What did he do? He lost 2 fights to 2 people that couldn't fight, and then he came back and beat them again. What did he do? He beat Mike Tyson when Mike Tyson was shot. And they said, "Oh, he got a good left jab, bang, 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 bang." You know, the jab, whop. It's a jab, man. Whop, whop. That's a jab. They don't know nothing about no jab. They don't know nothing about no right hand. They just go by what they hear and what sounds good for the media.
Who's the best in the world now, then?
I don't even know. I'm turned off with boxing to an extent that I still like to see Mike Tyson fight, because that's the best name out there. Without Mike Tyson, who's out there? Who you want to fight? You want to see Danny Williams fight? You don't want to. He's here, right? And you don't even want to see him fight, do you?
Well, he was pretty exciting against Tyson.
Well, that's the only fight that you thought he was going to. But before that, you didn't give him a chance. You didn't think he was going to win. Nobody thought. I
don't think very many people did.
Huh?
I don't think very many people did.
Nobody. Because he's fighting Mike Tyson. But they forget that Mike Tyson wasn't ready to fight Danny Williams. And Danny Williams was ready to fight Mike Tyson.
What do you see as your legacy for boxing, Larry? What do you think you've achieved? What's the lasting memory?
My lasting memory would be saying, I would always remember people said I couldn't do it. My legs were too small. I was just a copy of Muhammad Ali. I will never be the heavyweight champion of the world. And I proved them wrong. I was the heavyweight champion of the world for 7.5 years. Longer than anybody in boxing history except for the brown bummer, Joe Louis. My record speaks for itself. 75 fights, with my record saying 69 wins, with only 6 losses, with 44 knockouts. If that record don't go down in boxing history, nothing will.
You know what, John? It's illegal to get paid for doing interviews like that, isn't it? You have to pay people when they're that good.
It was just great. He's somebody I really like, Larry Holmes. You know, I've met him over the years, and I've got a lot of respect for him. And I tell you what, you talk about the all-time top 10s. Larry Holmes is right up there. He was a terrific fighter.
You know, you go through that list of all those defences, Richard, you just see fight after fight after fight.
Amazing.
Was he a favourite of yours?
Yeah, well, I actually remember when I think I was about a 12-year-old kid, I cried my eyes out, I did, when Ali got beat. I've only ever cried over fighters 2 or 3 times, and it was twice with Ali, and that was so I hated Holmes in a way. And after that period, if you remember, it seemed to die, and Holmes lived in Ali's shadow, but he was a great fighter.
But he's beating good fighters, though.
Oh, yeah, of course he was. It's a different.
But no one sees you in the shadows, do they?
Well, the thing is, Steve, you know, you can't compare today's heavyweight scene to then, can you? There were so many fighters there. I mean, I've been doing a few dinners with Ernie Shavers, you know, speaking to him. Just you speak to Ernie Shavers, and people say that he's the hardest puncher ever, and Larry Holmes there saying, you know, he hit him that hard that he woke up from the punch.
Do you think he was a little bit harsh on Lennox, John? You sort of, you could sense, I sensed something in your voice, not that you were going to get upset with Big Larry, because he's about 10
twice as big as me, isn't he? I think there's a little bit of maybe of a resentment of the success and the fame that Lewis has had. I think that he's got a point about the jab, though. You know, Lennox, for all his physical attributes, never jabbed with the authority that Larry Holmes did. You know, when he was loading up those shadow boxing jabs in my direction, you could almost wince.
I think he's being a bit unfair, though, to be honest, because Lennox has beat what's around. That's it. It's all about eras. If Larry Holmes was in this era, he'd probably be the #1 kid. But you know, Lennox has beat who's about, mate, and that's the.
I think the one shame of Lennox's career, and it's really no fault of Lennox's, was that he never got the chance to fight Riddick Bowe, did he? That could have been his defining fight, and it never happened.
You know, when you look back on Larry, you know, I look back and I see the films of when he beat Norton all those years ago, like '78 or whenever it was. You know, in the back lot at Caesar's Palace.
Fantastic fight.
Fantastic, 15-round fight, and then you see the fights after that. There's a great list of fighters there, John. There are no bums. There are 1 or 2 bums. You've got to have a couple of bums. That's the way it works. But in general, they're good fighters.
He'd beaten a who's who of fighters during that time, and I think he got sawn off against Spinks in that what would have been a 49th win. And you know, you heard what I said to Larry. I think there were people there and people around the scene who didn't really want Holmes to emulate Marciano.
Yeah, well, interesting week this week. I mean, Larry was in town. That's always good news. And this week has been the week when Amir Khan, the superstar, has had to make some decisions. We saw some stuff in the press at the start of the week. Amir's agent claiming that there'd not been an offer from the ABA, and now we know he does have an offer from the ABA. What's your take on the whole Amir Khan? Shall I go? Shall I stay?
Well, I think they've been using the possibility of him turning professional to really up the ante and put the pressure on Sport England and the ABA and the various other funding bodies to actually come up with some money. But you know, which they have done. But I've gone on record, and I really believe this, that I think that Amir actually ought to be turning professional, because I think in boxing you don't have very many windows of opportunity, and he is hot at the moment. And if he stays amateur, there's no guarantee that he's going to be a gold medalist in 4 years' time. You know, it's a big world out there.
Richie, surely you can't agree with that, being as you're a man that loved the vest. I mean, you were slimmer, you loved the vest.
Yeah, totally disagree. I think no question he should stay amateur. And let's face it, the ABA have come under a little bit of criticism, not coming forward with the deal, but they've come forwd with the deal now.
And it's a fortune.
Oh, it's an absolute fortune. You've got to give credit to the ABA, because they've come up with a £70,000 a year deal for the next 4 years, tax-free. Now that, Steve, is a phenomenal amount of money for an amateur boxer.
That's got expenses built into it, though. It's not just money which is going to be going into Amir's pocket.
And you've got to keep winning at European tournaments, world tournaments.
Hang on, 70,000 quid is not a lot of money compared with what he could get.
Johnny will be the highest paid amateur sportsman in this country. Yes, but listen, we're not taking into account also there's big firms out there. We've heard rumours about Adidas, other big sports firms that may be coming in with sponsorship deals as well. He could earn a fortune and still stay amateur.
The devil's advocate, Rich, and I want him to stay, trust me, but he'd have to go all those tournaments all around the world. Just quickly, John, should he go? Should he stay?
I think he should turn professional.
Just quickly?
Should definitely stay amateur.
Well, that's it, you've heard from the boys. You've seen Roy Jones, you've spoken to the legend. It's adios from me.